Now that we've studied the bulk of the good stuff, the next series of videos will be relatively fast because these lines are not popular and they're also not very good, okay? So we took a look at the Italian, bishop c5, c3, and now I'm going to show you a few things that black can play in this position that are not knight to f6. There's really not that many of them, and to be honest with you, the really only one that makes any sense is d6. Everything else is sort of bad. You're going d4 next versus basically everything. Knight a5, I don't know, I'm just sort of naming moves. At the very least, after knight a5, you can even take on f7 and play b4. So this, I don't know, like I said, I'm just totally naming random stuff. You can go here. I really wonder if you can even take, but you at the minimum have b4, so you'll win a piece back. You'll still take something in the center, and you know you're going to be just fine. The only move that really makes any sense is d6, and after d4, you have what you had in the first chapter, except basically now black isn't threatening the center at all, and after takes and takes, you get the same position, but they've played d6 instead of knight f6, which is just worse. It's just worse because now they have to play knight f6 or something else. Before we get there, they can also retreat here. We saw the position with with knight f6 here, bishop b6, or rather, no, this wouldn't make any sense because we can just take on e5 with a very good position, not to mention other things. Yeah, d6 here, we play d4, and if they go back to b6, I recommend taking on e5. The point here is that you actually don't even need to look at either of these moves, even though about 80% of the time, black takes on e5, which is just a terrible decision. Why? This move is the most popular, and the point is that after you trade the queen, you either win that pawn or that pawn. It's just very simple and straightforward here. If the king takes, you take that pawn. If the knight takes, you take that pawn. And it's kind of nice because even though black can create some counterplay, with a couple of very simple developing moves, and knight bd2 and castles long or short, you're just a clean pawn up, and black can't castle. I would keep the pawn here so the knight can't come any closer, and then I would bring my pieces forward and try to win a second pawn. And the same thing happens if knight takes. This is actually worse, though, because after knight takes, you have bishop f7, deflecting the king away from the defense of the queen. The only move is this. This doesn't win you the game because of knight f6, but you trade the queen, you castle, and you're just up a pawn. Now, what's funny is both of these moves make up over or roughly 80% of the moves here. The only move that isn't immediately terrible is bishop g4. Just grab a second pawn, castle your king, and if they try to put some pressure on you, you can throw in a check and just come back. And, you can put the knight here, you can play bishop out and knight out, and you're just the pawn up and they can't castle, and you will trade off some pieces. So I don't really want to spend too much more time here on bishop b6. This is far more likely, and now this version of bishop b6 actually makes some sense. Things are going to be a little bit different, obviously, because the knight wasn't developed to the f6 square. So if the bishop does go back to b6, I kind of like a very nice approach here. You can obviously just play knight c3, etc. But by not developing the knight to f6, black has the extra option to pin you, and by pinning you, they are able to destabilize your defense of the center. So while it would be really nice here to just develop everything, I think this move is very effective in this particular setup with d6, because the threat is simply to go d5. I don't really care if a6 is played. I will just drop back and re-threaten d5. So a6, bishop a4. It doesn't matter if that happens at any point. And now you do this, and the difference is you force the black bishop to be passive. If black now develops, you castle and play h3. Now nothing can go to g4. You won time, and when they play a6, you can go anywhere, really. Just don't go to d3 because they take this pawn, but, you can play like bishop a4. Bishop back to c2, a3 to stop knight b4. Develop, push a pawn in the center. You have a fantastic position, and you basically stop black's plans in their tracks. This is what I really like, and the same if knight e7, you go for the exact same approach. Basically, the way to remember this is, against c3, d6, you take the center, and if they drop backwards, you have to remember bishop b5 to threaten d5. We don't have this luxury because the knight is already on f6 in the other position, and they're castling, and they're taking our pawn, and this pawn is here, so there's no... Bishop b5 doesn't make any sense, but with the pawn on d6, we have the pin. So when the pawn has been advanced, we have the pin. Lastly, there is the check. And again, black can sort of try to play this like a regular game, but it doesn't make sense because they went d6, and after castles, now their position is just in trouble because we pin them immediately and we threaten knight d5. And if they play a move like h6, just something to keep in mind all the time, you have a sacrifice. This sacrifice is so annoying for black. They've only got a queen defending. You threaten knight d5 and queen f3, and this is just great for white. I mean, you just get a monster pawn attack here in the center with the bishops, you know, slicing and dicing. I would obviously not trade, but also you have d5, and even you have this. And defending this is so hard with black. It's such a nightmare. I mean, f4, e5, queen f3, queen d2 to try to get in on the dark squares as well. You know, just it's an overwhelming attack on black. It's very, very powerful. And the way to remember this is that the time lost in not developing faster allows us to immediately pin. And if they play bishop takes here, you should have already, obviously, you should have reviewed this, and you should know that d5 is the way to go. And this is really, really pleasant stuff. You've got all sorts of rook e1s and so on and so forth. There's also, this is kind of a rare, remember, rook e1, this is what you're trying to avoid. But even in this case, the position is one where the king is in the center. So you always have tactics. You always have things like bishop d3. Also bishop a3. Keeping this king in the center forever might be very problematic for black, who could simply land in a totally losing position right away because the king got stuck. So, like, to summarize this, d6 is just not, it's not going to work. This is the only way to try to make it work, the double bishop attack. Here I just like to castle. If bishop f3, we take with a queen. If knight takes, this is mate, so that doesn't work. And now we have this very nifty move, knight to d5. We've taken advantage of the fact that the pieces are on totally unique squares, and black didn't play the right way. They played the way they wanted to play. And now some good stuff awaits us, but we obviously have to be a little bit careful. The threat actually is the fact that if the knight moves, we have queen a4 check. So if the knight moves there or there or there, queen a4 check is an attack on these two pieces, and if they try to deflect us, we have this. Very odd, obviously, but the threat is on the knight, and the threat is queen a4 check, and black is losing. Just simply losing. We will take the bishop, and we will defend our own bishop. So a lot of games go bishop b4, and then people here play this because they don't want to play knight back to f6. They want to play this in a kind of unique way. But this is just wrong. Castles, knight d5 is clean, and now we're threatening a bunch of things. If this, I'm looking, and I think you have take. You have a fork, but you also have this, which is kind of cool. And that's a problem. Although, if you do it this way, there might be d5, and that's the move that I've been trying to avoid. So, queen a4 check is nice and clean. It's a fork, and if this, d5, and I really don't see it. I mean, there is knight c5 stuff, but there's always an attack here, and even if you don't do this, you can always play like bishop d5, and I mean, you're just attacking, too many things. Rook e1 stuff, then you come there, and yeah. There's almost always a tactic that if you spend a tiny bit of time, you should be able to locate with a very pleasant position. For example, I don't think this works, but there's always some bishop takes f7s as well and d5s. But in this case, maybe you shouldn't go for it. It's a little bit too much. But knight d5 is a very nice move. It's a very nice move. And if here, like I said, you're taking, you have something on the e-file basically almost always. And yeah, they're in a lot of trouble. And another cool concept here is that after takes, something like queen b3, right? I mean, the thing is, you've got many, many, many tactics, and almost all of them are leading to a very nice position. Here's a case where the blockade is lifted, and after rook e1, I mean, or queen b7 or queen c4, black is under an overwhelming amount of pressure. I'm just sort of trying to figure out how to put the game away. So, yeah, d6, d4. All right, d6, d4. If they retreat, take on e5, and you've got all those ways that you can win a pawn. And here, if bishop b4, knight c3, you've got lines where you castle, play bishop g5 and knight d5 very quickly. If the bishop comes here, you're always playing knight c3, and you're getting a quick jump on black, who wasted a time going here. And if they come back, the hard move to remember here is this extra bishop move. That is something that you have to drill. You have to understand the difference between the pawn or the knight coming out early on the fourth move for black.